our Saturday session of Kentucky Leads. We're glad you are all here, and I do just want to apologize in advance. I am down to one screen today, so usually I've learned finally how to go between two, but I haven't. I don't have two screens, so I apologize if I'm a little like sporadic with my screen clicking today. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. Just remember to be mindful of your mic. So make sure you're muted when you don't want to be heard or when you don't want us to hear what's going on in the background, like my noisy clock right now. Make sure that you are unmuted when you are speaking. We recommend that you have your video on. However, we know that some of us don't have the best internet or some of us have littles running around in the background and things. And so if you feel like you need to have your camera off, that's fine too. We do just ask that you have it on when you're speaking. And then when we're in our small group discussion, our breakout rooms, please make sure that your camera is on then as well. Just remember, this is a recorded session. These sessions are recorded so that everybody can go back to them at their convenience and rewatch if needed. Also, if you need a break, just take a break. We have a break built in around 11 o'clock, but if you need a break in the meantime, go ahead and do that. Just let us know in the chat that you've stepped away for the moment. As a reminder, to navigate Teams, the most important buttons are your camera and your mic, particularly that mic button. So please mute and unmute yourself using this. Camera off and on is here. A couple of other things that are useful is the reaction. So if you want to give someone an applause or a heart or a thumbs up, you can click this reaction button. It'll give you some options. And also another important button is our chat. So if you don't have your chat popped open just yet, go ahead and do that. You'll click that and it should pop up over on your right-hand side of your screen. Just a reminder of our team norms. In Kentucky Leads, we participate respectfully. We welcome multiple viewpoints. We're going to devote our attention to those who are speaking and sharing. If you have questions, do not hesitate to ask. You can either raise your hand or just drop it in the chat. And as we have time for pause and reflect, we'll make sure we get to your question. We encourage you to be courageous and speak your truth. So if you hear something that's new or challenging to you, please feel encouraged that this is a safe space to speak up about that. But we also ask that you own your intentions and your impacts of whatever you do say. And most importantly, please honor our time together. We know that it is Saturday morning. We all have lots of other things going on, and it's a cold Saturday morning. So I'd like to be under a blanket sipping my coffee right now. But nonetheless, we do ask that you be here. You honor our time together, so you can wear your blanket while we're here. That's totally fine. No judgment in this room. But if you need to be somewhere else, if there's somewhere else that you absolutely have to be, then please feel free to do that. Just remember some of our participation and our absence expectations or our presentation expectations. Just a reminder of staying connected. You can always go to the Kentucky Leads SharePoint site, and that's where you're going to find everything Kentucky Leads. We also have the directory, so if you want to reach out to someone from our team, maybe they said something, had a really good comment in your small group about preschool, and you want to reach out to them and discuss that further, you can go to the directory. Also, our Kentucky Leads discussion board. This is a really great space. I've seen some really great conversations happening around, hey, what about this? And have you guys heard of this? Because you guys have so many great resources and ideas. And the discussion board is a really great place to share those or ask those questions and pick the brains of your team. And in case you missed it, our October session, so last month's session was over data and finance, and we heard from Chris Thacker and Amy Patterson. So if you missed that one, again, you can hop into the Kentucky Leads SharePoint site and see that last session. Or if you're like, oh, I wanted to go back to a resource they shared, you can always go back to that. Link to the session, so we will make sure that you guys get a link to that session in the chat later on. Here's our agenda for today. We'll have our check-in and our updates, and then we're going to hear about the early childhood pyramid model from Stephanie Ernst. It's going to be a great presentation for you guys. We'll have a break around 11. We're going to have a more early childhood pyramid model, and then 11:35 we'll hop into some small group discussion and some chat time. And then we'll have some group sharing time, just any reflections or questions. And then 11:55 we'll have our evaluation and wrap up. We'll go ahead and hop into just our Kentucky Leads updates. We're going to hear from Mike, I think, where he's going to talk to us about the discussion board reminders, some group norms, and our skills and competencies checklist. Mike, go ahead with that discussion board.
Thanks, Shasta. And just a reminder, everybody, that discussion board is really important. One, just for you all to have a way to communicate with each other, post questions, and reflect on each other's questions, but also for our evaluation purposes. So please continue to do that. The skills and competency checklist, just to give everybody group norms and responsibilities. We want to make sure that everyone follows or participates in some of the aspects that Shasta touched on, but also make every effort to be here too and be present on our Saturday sessions as well. Just vitally important. The information you get here is really meant to extend what you're getting in your coursework. And we have some, I'm very biased, I think we have some of the best speakers available to really help you get better prepared as you enter into your future roles as directors and leaders in school districts. And then lastly is the skills and competency checklist. And we do this every year, and we will be doing it after the first year of every cohort. So this year's cycle will be for cohort 2. And so we'll be sharing more information about that in the upcoming months. We'll begin that work either end of the winter time or early springtime, and we'll be reaching out to particularly cohort 2 members, explaining that a little bit more and what it involves. But just want to give you a little heads up on that, what's coming down the road, and good to have everybody here this morning. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions before we move into our presentation? Anybody have any questions or thoughts? And I cannot see the chat box, so if something is in the chat, will someone who can see the chat box please share that?
Shasta, I do not see any questions in the chat box.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Stephanie, we'll go ahead and hand the screen over to you. And friends, we're going to hear from Stephanie Ernst, and she is one of the KDE's consultants in the Office of Special Education and Early Learning. And I'll let her give you just a little brief bio or brief intro to herself. And she's going to be talking to us about the pyramid model, promoting social emotional competence for preschoolers. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Shasta. Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Um, Shasta, just real quick, I did not get my request approved to share the screen. So we'll let you guys troubleshoot that here while I do a brief introduction. So I have worked with the pyramid model at KDE since 2019. Prior to coming to KDE, I was a preschool teacher for 14 years. And I've been at KDE now almost 5 years. Time's gone by really, really quick. Um, but I come to you this morning just to share some information about what I do, about some things that might be helpful for you as you are becoming a dose or are a dose or might be a preschool coordinator and a dose. There's lots of options out there, to support preschool. I I have just one ask this morning before we roll into our actual presentation because I don't know who you are. Just in the chat, and everybody can kind of do this all at once, just like a waterfall, just for me to kind of reflect back on. If you could put where you're from, I think I saw some Graves County. Carmen was here this morning from Graves County. If you can just kind of toss that in the chat for me so I can know who I was speaking to, and I'll read that later. Thanks, Becca. I should be good to go now. So I will try to share my screen. Bergen and Mercer. Awesome. I'm originally from Boyle, so that's not far from there. And Davies. I work a lot with Western Kentucky folks. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Keep those coming in here. Marta, I thought I recognized your name on there earlier. So let's try to share my screen. Okay. Share content. Okay. Now I'm like Shasta, everything's away because I'm down to one screen. Well, Shasta, Bill, Mike, Becca, are you guys seeing like the presentation or am I in a funky format here?
It's
Yep,
You're
we
you're
see the
good to go.
presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we are going to talk this morning about the pyramid model for promoting social emotional competence for preschoolers. Again, I hope that some of you have heard of this work before, but if not, we're going to dive into this here. But first, and please unmute yourself. I'd love to hear from a few folks. But how are you feeling this morning? This is just one of the check-ins I like to do. This morning, I'll go first. I'm extremely excited. Excited's not on here, so I'm going to go with happy. I'm just happy to get to share the work that we're doing in Kentucky and I get to use you guys as practice for the Kentucky CEC. We'll be presenting some similar work there. And again, I'm just happy to be here this morning. So, how are some of you all feeling today?
I love this, Stephanie.
Well, how are you feeling, Becca?
I would say I am feeling, I'm kind of digging that happy picture. It's
He's
Saturday
precious.
morning, even though we're at work/school, I'm feeling pretty happy.
You've had coffee, everything's going well. Let's hear from
That's
a
right.
couple more folks. How are you feeling this morning?
I am feeling happy today, Stephanie. This is Carrie Thornburg.
Good morning, Carrie. I didn't know you were on here. I'm excited to
Good
see
morning.
you.
And I'm a little proud because I do this work. So I am proud to hear it. So
Yay. Couple more.
I'm also feeling happy this morning. I'm very interested in learning more about this.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning. I'm glad you're happy. Oh, I cut somebody off, didn't I? My apologies. We'll move on, but this is one of the things that comes straight from the pyramid model, and we always check in with our students, and it's just a step that's often skipped. Our students come to us in preschool from a couple different ways. They could ride the bus, they could be dropped off in the car line, but we skip this step, and I really enjoy. I start all my trainings. I even greet my own kids and my husband in the morning. I'm just like, how are you guys feeling today? Are you anxious? In case there's a test coming up, are you scared because something new? Or are you excited? So my daughter, for those of you that didn't hear our early morning conversation, she's 9. And yesterday was their line pride day. So every district does their own reward system for PBIS and for good grades. But yesterday was her line pride day. And she said yesterday morning she was so excited it was going to be the best day ever because they weren't going to do any work. Um, and so when she came home, I said, "Well, was it the best day ever?" And she said, "Yes, because we had a dance, we got to eat lunch in our classroom, we got to watch a movie." She said, "I didn't do any work all day. It was fantastic." And it's always good to just check in with our preschoolers. A lot of folks think that our 3s and 4s and some of those 5-year-olds, they can't tell you how they're feeling. But I promise you they can. So when they come in and they won't put that backpack where you really want it to go, or they come in and they can't let go of mom, they have some feelings and we want to help them work through that. So this is one of our key components to this work is just teaching our teachers and our district leaders how to check in with their kiddos. It seems simple, but again, it's a simple step that we often look over. So why did we start this work? Why are we here? If we don't know why we're here, then we're going to have a hard time really understanding some of these components. But if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach them. We find lots of ways to teach them to read. If they don't know how to swim, we teach them. We don't send them in empty-handed either. We give them something to help. Either that's floaties or a person or a life jacket. If we're not great at math, if we can't multiply, we teach. Oh goodness, those teenagers, if we don't know how to drive, we teach them. We make sure we're buckled up. We might have extra insurance. Some moms and dads, caregivers might wrap in bubble wrap, but we still teach. But if a child doesn't know how to behave, what do we do? Do we teach or do we punish? And this is one thing that most folks, they can't finish that last sentence as easily as we did the others, because often we don't think about that. When we don't behave, what do we do? What is our first instinct? Um, I'll go ahead and share. Our first instinct usually is to punish, even though we probably really don't mean to punish. That's our first instinct as caregivers, as teachers, as moms, as dads, as grandpas, grandmas. Usually we're trying to take something away. If you don't clean that room, I'm going to take your shoes and give them to someone that want them, right? And then that follows over to our classroom. If you don't pick that up, you can't come back and play there later. So just real quick, I'm interactive, so I'm sorry for those of you that are sleepy this morning. I want to hear from you. So we're virtual, so we can't really turn to a partner, but think just for a moment, what behaviors have you or your district seen this school year? I would like someone to share out about that. And then what strategies have worked either in a classroom that you were in or your district to help support behavior in children? So we'll take just a moment, and then Shasta, I don't know, again, I can't see the screen, so I don't know if you guys usually have folks raise their hand or if we just want to unmute and share.
I think we could start out with hands raised. I see Martha has her hand up. Go ahead, Martha.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I can't turn my camera on, but um, I'm in Montgomery County and I am the preschool coordinator, and we have seen an increase in um, a little bit more physically aggressive type behaviors like tipping shelves, throwing chairs, um, and something that I am excited about and feel very positive about is that we have partnered with the Berea RTC, and we are a targeted district for the pyramid model. And we just had our 6 hour first module training with Misty Head yesterday. So this is fresh in our minds here, and I'm just really excited about the program. However, I backtrack and say I'm also very concerned about children's escalating behaviors each year. So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I did recognize that you were on here, and we got to talk in the summer. You came to one of our exploration meetings that we had with Berea. That's one of the reasons why I'm not in the classroom. So why am I sitting here and not in a classroom? Because I had the table flipper and the chair thrower. But the piece that was different was I could handle that, but my administration gave us no support. And so I just wanted to find a position where I could impact leaders to support their teachers. And Montgomery County, I think, Martha, thank you so much for sharing, because you guys have definitely stood behind them. And so, what, we see these behaviors in young children and we want to support you, and we don't want to turn our back on you, want to help you fix this. Misty's fabulous. I'm excited that you guys are paired with Berea RTC. I'm excited to see the results that you get in your district.
And also Amanda Bruce. Go ahead, Amanda.
Thanks, Shasta. So I'm the compliance coordinator for Bullitt County. So I work closely with all of our IDEA areas, including preschool. And one of the biggest challenges that we're facing currently is a large increase in mental health concerns amongst our 3 and 4-year-olds. We are seeing a significant increase in anxiety, depression, other mental health concerns, and students who are struggling emotionally to be able to regulate those emotions and be able to function.
Yeah, so one of the neat things about this work, and today we're going to primarily talk about the main chunk. So the pyramid model actually has multiple modules, and I think Carrie Thornburg is on here as well. So I'm going to call you out, Carrie, just to check, what I'm saying. But we also are exploring, there's a new mental health component in the pyramid model, and there's a component for families also to carry this work over into the home. But yes, we are seeing that even our youngest learners are having some really tough concerns mentally. And I definitely am not the expert on the why, but I've heard that from other folks. Carrie, am I correct in that there are some other pieces coming out to this work?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Stephanie,
Yeah, there.
I'm so sorry. We
No,
we
you're
have a
fine.
couple of hands raised, and I didn't
No,
know if you're.
perfect.
Were you able to see the? Looks like
I
Savannah Boone.
can't. I
Yes.
Okay.
can't see the hands. I'm sorry. I'm a one screener this morning, Becca. You just interrupt me
Oh,
as
that's
needed.
right. Okay, Savannah, did you have a question or a comment?
Yes. So I teach at the high school level. So the behaviors that I'm seeing are probably quite different than at the preschool level, but I suspect the one that is the same that we're seeing is extreme screen addiction. Um,
Mm.
like our kids are wired and tired from being on screens a lot. And that, was happening before the pandemic, but it seems to have worsened. And at the high school level, we're trying to combat like cell phone usage, but as a mom of a preschooler, I see it where kids have been in front of screens so much that we've kind of lost that ability to not be in front of a screen, and that is a behavior issue.
It really is. And just this is Stephanie, just as a mom speaking, right now. I shared with you guys I have a middle schooler. And the crazy thing, of course, I respect all middle school and high school teachers. That is not my jam. Please do not send me there. It's just not where I'm going to excel or succeed. But they go to classrooms, but he still sits behind the screen to complete all of his work. And so I try to limit that at home. And again, he's in middle school, so then I'm again not the cool mom. But yeah, we have even when I was still in the classroom and screens were not as predominant for our young ones, I had several that would ask to bring their iPads. The parents actually would say, "You're going to need this iPad if you want him to do anything. You're going to need this iPad if you want her to listen. You're going to need this iPad if you don't want her to bite you or throw something at you." And that that is a big issue that we see. Thank you for sharing.
I think we'll take
Sandra?
one more. Yep, Sandra, go ahead. Or Sandy.
Oh, here I come. Oh, there we go. Sandy's fine. So I'm a speech path. I was in Montgomery County with Marty, but now I'm in Oldham County. But I definitely think there's been an increase in severity. Like I joke because every year I'd be like, "Oh, this is the worst speech I've heard. It's so bad," and then it's just speech, but coupled with other things. I know Montgomery County, there I had a lot of kids with a diagnosis of autism. So some of those challenging behaviors, but then also the communication deficits. And when kids have the communication deficits and the lack of language, I feel like there's more behaviors because they can't express how they feel. And sometimes, like you guys are talking about with the tablet, it becomes a babysitter. Like, here, go take the tablet, go to your room. And there's no back and forth exchange of communication. There's no, it's immediate gratification. There's no waiting. It's like, there's no turn taking. So these kids come in with not great artic because there's no communication skills, but then no good social skills either. Like, they don't know how to maintain a conversation. They don't know how to follow directions. They want it immediate because that's what you get on a tablet. So I think as just from a speechy perspective, that's kind of what I see.
Oh, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you guys this morning for sharing. I appreciate it. Okay. Um, People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for. This is a quote from Harper Lee, and this struck home for us because what do I do with this work? I go and I support our RTCs and our districts, and we talk a lot about this work with the pyramid model. We're going to talk about the tiers here in just a moment, but one of the things that people skip over, they hear that we offer something that could help, and they hear that we want to support you, but maybe they don't hear exactly what they should be listening for, that this is not a quick fix. So I do want to share that with you this morning. This is not something that's going to fix all those preschool, kindergarten behaviors overnight. It takes time. It actually takes 3 to 5 years to fully implement to fidelity the work that we're going to talk about this morning. And it's hard. Sometimes you're going to have some veteran teachers that they don't want to see and they don't want to hear. And that is a barrier that we will help folks work through. And it comes back to communication. You were just sharing, communication and social emotional skills are so very important, but they're important as adults too, as we come in and try to offer support for the classroom. Sometimes that's hard for veteran teachers. Sometimes it's hard for new teachers. Um, so we do have some partners I want to touch on just really quickly. Always Families first. This work also has a family component, family caregiver component that we will talk briefly about. Our partners are our teachers and our staff. Without our teachers and without the staff in these classrooms, we could not provide these supports for our youngest learners and our regional training centers. So if you're on here this morning and you don't know what the regional training center is, we have 5 regional training centers across the state. We have Anderson, Ashland, Berea, Callaway, and Simpson. And those folks are all trained in this work. They are the folks that are supporting this work across the state, currently in 35 districts, 55 buildings, and 209 classrooms across Kentucky have partnered with us in this pyramid model work for intensive and targeted support. So that is a lot of space. We still have a lot of room to grow. We've tweaked our supports for this work since 2019. We did start this work during COVID and overcame so many barriers. But each RTC has a pyramid trained coach that has gone through extensive training, and they receive support from us at KDE to help make this framework fit everything else in your district. So you'll notice that I said framework. One of the things that we hear so often is it's just another thing, right? We've got lots of things. We've got assessment, we've got costs, we've got early childhood standards, we've got just a day in and day out. How do we have time for one more thing? The pyramid model is not a curriculum. It is truly a framework that fits all the other pieces into it. So here on the screen, you'll see what the pyramid model actually looks like. And it starts with the effective workforce. We have to have folks behind the work to make it work. It's the floor. And our Associate Commissioner Greta Hilton, she often, speaks about you have to have your floor ready before you can build anything else on top of it. And that is the same with this pyramid model work. We cannot skip a step. We cannot skip and go straight to a classroom if our leaders don't understand what this work is and if our leaders don't understand what's happening in the classroom. So as you guys are preparing to be doses and preschool coordinators, or maybe you are already a dose or a preschool coordinator or both, because some wear both hats in Kentucky, I want you to think about that really and think about, I know you're busy, but do you know what's happening in those preschool classrooms with your teachers and staff? Do you know the barriers that they're facing? Do you know what their requirements are, as a preschool teacher, those home visits and different data entry? And do you recognize those teachers and those students as district students? I know that sounds crazy right now, but I've been doing this work across the state, like I said, since 2019. I've got 2 pieces that I talk a lot about, and one is helping leaders and staff at districts understand preschoolers and your preschool staff. They belong to your district. They're not separate. They're still your students, even though they're 3 and 4 and in those preschool classrooms. They don't become yours overnight when they hit kindergarten. They're yours from day one in that preschool classroom. And that may sound silly to some of you guys, but that's something we've seen. Again, I know not all districts are the same, but some we're still working on bridging acceptance and understanding in preschool into our district K-12 environment. So that's a huge piece of this work, is building in some transitions for that piece and bringing in that linking piece from preschool to kindergarten. We have on here, after the effective workforce, we have that universal tier, and that's where we really look at the environment and we look at those nurturing and responsive relationships. The second tier is the targeted piece, looking at some more specific social and emotional supports. So universal, everybody gets it. It's not just something we come in and we do for a couple students. Our RTCs and our KDE staff are going to help your district and help your teachers look at things they can do for everyone in there. And often it's really simple things that maybe we've done in the past, but we haven't been doing recently because we've got to kind of revamp from COVID. Schedules, visual schedules, a lot of pieces, how many kids are allowed in the learning centers. Please know I said learning centers and not behind a desk, right? Our preschoolers, really, in my opinion, even some of our kindergartners learn best with the ability through play and through those center time opportunities that they have. Then when we go to targeted, we've got, some kids need a little bit more. The one thing I'm going to say about the intensive intervention, so that's our tier 3. If you get here, you as the dose, you as the preschool coordinator need to be heavily involved. Mom, dad, caregiver, whoever that person is, needs to know at this point we have concerns with our kiddos. Please, please do not come in and, shock mom, dad, caregiver with saying, well, we've done universal supports, we've tried some targeted, now you need an IEP, and here we are. Let them know about the build up to that. So we'll dive just a little bit deeper into some of the outcomes. So the pyramid model have a few outcomes for teachers and staff. We look for a shared language for communicating expectations. Expectations are huge, and again, our coaches, they spend a lot of time on that because often they go into classrooms and the classroom expectation just isn't quite where it needs to be. Maybe it's close and needs tweaked just a little bit. Or maybe there are no expectations because we've got, teacher shortages. So we're just trying to fill spaces with, folks that want to do this work and like kids. So they spend a lot of time on expectations for preschool. And sometimes those expectations are going to be different than your K-12 expectations, right? And you have to teach them. You have to teach expectations all year because we take breaks and then we have to reteach. We get sick, we have to reteach. So that's just a huge piece of this work. We also look at the capacity to teach social and emotional skills. We look at ways to address challenging behavior and support families. If we don't support families, then we're missing a huge piece to this work because the family's the child's first teacher, whether that family is a foster family or biological family or different family dynamics, that's who our kiddos see in the morning. That's where they go home. And so we want to be able to support those families as well. We also want to make sure folks feel supported by our program efforts and have positive relationships with families. And then, of course, this work does come with fidelity, and we make sure that no children are asked to leave our programs due to behavior. Again, I'm realistic. I know that sometimes that does happen, but that is our goal, not only in Kentucky, but with this work that we do with the pyramid model, is that children are not asked to leave due to their behaviors. We have outcomes for families. We really want to provide a teaming structure so that the family and teachers have a relationship and that families are aware of what's going on in the classroom. I think as a teacher, sometimes I made the mistake thinking that the family didn't want to really know how their child's day was. But if I wasn't transparent, if I didn't share that, then they went home and maybe the parents are thinking, well, they act this way here at home, but I guess they don't in the classroom. Everything's okay. So we want to make sure that we have that teaming. And parents also have reported that they feel more supported and they have ways to address challenging behaviors at home with this work. And then we have decreases in parent concerns about safety and behaviors. So we do have a little bit of research on effects of early childhood behavior. And what starts in our early years and with our youngest learners typically tends to continue. So I think we had someone share this morning, she's a teacher in high school and, some of the things she's seeing, but I'm sure she's seen a lot more pieces in high school. Chances are if you have a high school student with some behavior concerns, it started at preschool or kindergarten because that's where it starts. And that's our goal, is to get in there and work ourselves out of a job, right, as special educators. But 63% of children with high levels of externalizing behavior challenges at 2 continued at age 5. And with this, adolescents identified with conduct problems as young kids commit 50% of our adolescent crime and 75% of violent crime. So I want to stop and really let that sink in. And this, like I said, this work is supported by OSEP and IDEA, and there's tons of research out there to show that yes, if we don't get in there early and support our youngest learners, we're really feeling them. And they're going to be our teens, our preteens, our teens that just can't quite get control. I mean, I know that sounds maybe kind of crazy, thinking that a 2, 3, 4 year old, we're already saying they're going to be part of that statistic there, but they are if our teachers and districts don't have the right support to support the classroom learning and the at home learning. So, what do you guys think about that? I mean, I can't see the screen, so we'll just take a couple of hands up. Shasta or Becca, whoever's watching that. What are our thoughts here?
Amanda, go ahead.
Thanks, Shasta. So it's very interesting to me. I work across the spectrum. So I work with our adolescents at the alternative center that many of them have drug incidents, violent behaviors, etc. And when we do those reviews and we look back and we're looking at manifestations, it's true, at least 50% of them, we had knowledge of these behaviors early on. And it makes you have to rethink what interventions did we have in place versus what we could control versus what we can't control. Um, it's fascinating and it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
The earlier we can intervene, just like we know with other areas of disability like autism or cognitive
Absolutely.
delays, it's the same process. We have to consider that behavior is not willful. Behavior is communication and a process for expressing an inability to process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's everything. I'll talk a lot. Shasta knows I talk a lot, so I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. You're right. And as I appreciate that you say, you go back and you look and you're like, yes, as we're looking at this manifestation, we're seeing, it did start early on and things have changed, right? The way that we, work with behavior in preschool has changed a lot, since I was my first ever day in the classroom. I can still remember that day and I remember exactly where I was and some thoughts that ran through my head versus my last day. And the children have changed, right? So I don't have specific research on that, but I can tell you from my classroom experience that behaviors I worked with year 1 versus year 14 were very, very different because, our lifestyles and economy and the folks that raised the kids, are different. I had 2 sets of great great grandparents in my last classroom that were raising their preschool children. So it's interesting to just kind of think. And one of the things that I want to highlight, for you guys, let your preschool staff and teachers know they don't have to handle this alone because as a teacher, I thought I have to take care of this behind my door. I can't ask for help. I can't let my coordinator, I can't let my principal, I can't let my director know that I've got this extreme behavior. I've just got to figure it out on my own. And I think that's just something with different teachers, or maybe it's a preschool piece. I'm not sure. We don't want to let folks down. But make sure you share with your staff. Don't think you have to take care of it behind your door. Because if you need support, our goal is to get in there and refine and support early on, so then it doesn't continue, and you're not looking at these statistics and looking at that manifestation at the middle and high school years. I talk a lot too, so I apologize. Was there anyone else that had a hand up?
I don't see any more hands, but there were some
Okay.
good comments in the chat. So I'll just kind of read over these where, Savannah just kind of, said again, we see this at the high school level all the time. Sandy said every behavior is a form of communication. Savannah added that the other common thread we see with students who have extreme behaviors in high school is that parents have disengaged at some point in elementary school. And then Miranda said, I would love to see this awareness spread to families, to admin. Wish more people realize that this is what preschool is about. We don't just play all day. We are investing in and guiding our future and instilling in them the skills to cope and manage. And I would just add something that, Savannah, you prompted what you said there about, families, disengaging. You saw a little comment or just a connection that I kind of have with that. is thinking about that importance of positive, family school partnerships and relationships and things like that. And I hear this from you. You guys know I work a lot with families and family school partnership work, and um, one of the things that I hear a lot is especially when families only hear negative things about their child year after year after year. At some point, they're either just going to get really angry and start fighting back, or they're going to disengage. And so that's why that I think that I love this work. I love the PBIS. I've some of the things that one of the things that Bill shared in the chat. That's some research that I've done is looked at and reviewed as well. And I think it's so true that those positive communications and ongoing communications with families is so important, because again, if they only hear negative things about their kid, they're that's what they're going to do. They're going to disengage. So yeah, really really good thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shasta. So that brings me just to one other talking point before I go on. And, again, a big piece of my job is to share what I learned as a teacher and to share what I'm super passionate about, which is obviously, preschool, early childhood. But if your district is disengaged from the preschool side of the work, then you're missing something huge, because your preschool teachers, that preschool classroom, that environment, that building, whether it's an early childhood building or they're embedded in your elementary, that is the first experience that caregivers get with your district. That sets the tone for the next however many years you have them in your district, in your county, in your school. If we miss the boat there with our families, then we've really, started off on the wrong foot. And that's a piece of this work that truly does. I'm not going to continue to call on our coaches that are on the call, but they spend a lot of time making sure what they share at the district level is shared with families, and making sure that we do have good relationships with the families and caregivers of these young learners, not just to help preschool, but to help set the tone for the next however many years, like I said, that you have them there in your district. Just real quick, we won't spend a lot of time here just for time's sake. Disproportionality in early childhood discipline. So you guys have access to this PowerPoint, I do believe, but just take a look at this for yourself and, look at some highlights. I'll highlight a couple pieces here. This was 17-18 data. That's the most current that we do have due to COVID. There should be some new data that will come out after this school year. But look just briefly at those suspension and expulsion rates. And this is preschool, folks. This is early childhood. We have to support this work. We have to share the good news. We have to, champion, positive behavior in preschool, because those suspension and expulsion numbers are a little scary.
Stephanie, this is Becca. Can you go back
Yeah.
to that last screen? The
This one?
disproportionality? Yes. So is one fact, I'm thinking of number one, that data is staggering in my opinion. And I'm immediately trying to think of reasons for this disproportionality. And the first thought that comes to my mind is the adults that are at the table. It has to come from those adults, right? The fact that girls make up almost 50% of the enrollment and 17% of the suspension, yet boys are over 50% and 83% of the suspensions. So it has to be a conversation that's far reaching, even more than just in the preschool classroom. Those numbers are staggering.
Absolutely. I will share that, this data takes into consideration childcare, Head Start, and state-funded preschool across all this. So it's a little bit different. So Kentucky's data is just a smidge different because we break those down. Everybody has their own house. But it's crazy. And it takes you back to, we have heard a lot from preschool teachers and preschool coordinators or principals, directors, that things go great at school, but then their students get kicked out of their after school childcare, or if they're half day, then, they get kicked out of their, AM childcare placement and then can't get bused to the classroom. So we have a lot of work to do. Honestly, across Kentucky with this, but we're starting. We've got a good start, but we've got a lot of work to do.
Steph, I can give you a quick time check. We've
Thank
got it
you.
at 10:45 and we have break at 11
At
or around
11.
11. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Shasta. Um, so here in Kentucky, preschool teachers have reported that children's disruptive behavior is the single greatest challenge they're facing right now. And then we also have data that says preschool children are 3 times more likely to be expelled than their K-12 children. Again, some of that is due to not understanding, to, making mistakes and sending them home, when mom or dad or grandma texts and says, hey, how's Mike doing today? And I say he's had a really hard day. And then they offer to come pick Mike up, and Mike goes home. And let's just say it's Thanksgiving week, and this happened on Tuesday, but we still have school on Wednesday. Mike's mom says, you know what? I'm going to keep him home tomorrow so you don't have to worry about it. Well, I just expelled Mike. And so a lot of it is just getting this information out there and educating folks on what this does look like in preschool. And again, sometimes it's not purposeful. I learned a lot about what, suspension and expulsion was, when I came from the classroom. And I was like, man, I am guilty. Where do I turn myself in? Do they still want me here? Because I did A, B, and C, but I didn't know. So that's where I task, each of you, educate your teachers, because we don't know what we don't know. And that's a piece of this work, that our RTCs are doing along with Pyramid, is educating teachers, district staff on what that actually looks like so we can make this look a little bit better. We don't want to expel our preschool children. There's some key social emotional skills. So I want you to think about these. And this is what the pyramid model brings to you. It brings confidence, capacity to develop those good relationships, concentration and persistence on challenging tasks, ability to effectively communicate. We've heard that a lot this morning. Ability to listen, ability to solve, and ability to calm down. So when children don't have these skills, what happens? Your behaviors happen. When adults don't have these skills, what happens? We have behaviors too, right? If we are missing some of these social emotional skills, then we don't have the best day either. So this is a piece that really drives this work, is making sure that we can teach these to our young learners. So that becomes our outcomes for our kids with the pyramid model, is to have growth in social emotional skills, to decrease those disruptive behaviors, a reduction in challenging behaviors, but increase social interactions that are appropriate, and increase child engagement and learning opportunities. So, those last two, we want to increase those things, but that can't be done behind a desk. That can't be done without some teachers, roaming around the classroom, having positive interactions in the learning centers. We have to have everybody on board. We have to have everybody happy. I understand, illnesses and vacancies happen, but, we've got to have folks really engaged in the classroom. If we're not engaged in the classroom, then our kids aren't going to be engaged, and we're going to have some behavior issues. So again, before the break, I think we're going to just cover the big piece that we talk about, and that's our universal promotion. So what do all students get with this work after we've set up that effective workforce? So again, folks, you're going to be our future leaders, or you are our leaders. That means you're the effective workforce. You're the folks that stand behind these teachers and staff. Everything's about those nurturing and responsive relationships. These pictures make me happy. They make my heart smile. Look at, the corner with the little puppets. The teacher, she's in, the dramatic play area. She's playing, they're learning. There's so much that can be done when our teachers get down on the kiddos level. So in that tier 1, when we look at designing supportive environments, it's all about routines and expectations, and it's about how to have conversations that are meaningful with children. And our coaches, our RTCs go in and will help your teachers and staff set up those routines and expectations. And a lot of times it's just a little bit of tweaking. It's just, maybe a teacher that maybe the expectations are that, the children line up properly. But in preschool, have they been taught how to line up when they go down the hall to the restroom? Everything they have to learn when they come into that preschool building. So just making sure those expectations are preschool appropriate. Looks a little bit like this. Um, Show respect and stay safe. Again, we start with 2. You really only want to start with 2 to 3 expectations when school starts. You'll add to this as the year goes on, but little kids, our youngest learners, can only retain a little bit of information at first. And then we look at what that looks like in the classroom. The playground and the hallway was what was selected for this particular example, but the teacher can kind of select, where we really need to take the first step. But so in the classroom, showing respect means soft touches. So that means, our gentle hands. On the playground, it means we take turns. And in the hallway, we use an inside voice. But all these things have to be taught. So our teachers go in and they teach what this looks like for our youngest learners. We don't just post it on the wall and think they can read and think they can understand, right? We have to demonstrate. That's a big chunk of this work, is showing our youngest learners what that actually means. And then our second expectation in this sample is stay safe. So what does stay safe mean to these preschoolers? It means in the classroom, we use our walking feet. In the playground, we sit on bikes, we sit on the slide, we sit on the swing, and we have to teach that. We can't just open the door and let them go if we don't teach. And in the hallway, it's that walking feet. And again, you have to teach the expectations. So I will stop here just for a moment. Would you expect to see more expectations for a preschool classroom, or does this look reasonable? Or are you shocked, or did you already know this? I can't see if you've put your hand up, or I can't see the chat either. I'm going to have to request more money for a screen.
I'll kind of share with you kind of things that are happening, in the chat.
Thank you.
Harper has his hand up.
Okay,
Sorry to
good.
interrupt.
Go ahead, Harper.
I think you might be on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, it showed me as unknown. Can you hear me now? We
Yes.
good?
Yeah.
All right. I think it showed me maybe as an unknown user in the chat. I'm not sure. But I was going to elaborate on what I was saying. I think that what you're getting at with like explicit instruction around all of these expectations at preschool, like it's so critical and absolutely has to happen. But it goes beyond that. I mean, we oftentimes for like middle school and high school students think that students are just going to be able to sit in their seat or follow a rule or whatever it may be, and that oftentimes isn't the case. And one of a lot of the conversation that I have, especially with general education teachers, is explaining that, okay, this student's in second grade and they're not staying in their area. Have you explicitly taught them how they're supposed to stay in their area? And 9 times out of 10, well, no, they should be able to do that. They're 7 years old, they're 8 years old. And that's not always the case for our students, especially our special education students. So like this at preschool, so critically important, but it should be generalized across all grade levels. We should be doing this with every student, whether you're in preschool or whether you're a senior in high school.
I often say that all of our educators, if they did what we set up in preschool for every grade, the world would be amazing, right? Um, and to elaborate on that just briefly, and then it'll be time for air break. I've shared a little bit about my kids, but my third grader, this is she was a true child of a COVID classroom. She started kindergarten, got sent home for most of the year, right? We shut down. We thought we were coming home for a couple weeks, and she never went back. So she never experienced what all those things were like in a classroom. And she did not go to preschool. So, that was her first experience. And then we go to first grade, and about 85% of that school year for her was still virtual, still at home learning. They went back to the classroom um, for March and then got sent home again in April, and then went back for a few weeks in May, and then we had summer break. So then she went to second grade last year, and she came home. It was, I think, her second or third day of school, and she said, Mom, did you know that there is a cafeteria here and we are supposed to be in line to get our food? And that I've shared, I think Becca and Shasta have heard this story before, but for me, I was like, oh my goodness, because this is what I do every day is try to help folks at the preschool level. But I missed it with my own kiddo who's in second grade and had never experienced going through a true cafeteria line because in kindergarten, her classroom, they went in and just sat down at the table and the food was brought to them. In first grade, I was her cafeteria. So she went, to her kitchen and got her food. And then in second grade, she's expected to go stand in line, learn a number, get a tray, and go sit down at a table. And that's when I realized she's part of this group that really, they don't know what is right and what is wrong. And so her teacher that year had a really hard year. And I spent some time with him as a second grade teacher, just, offering some of these type of supports. And then he took this and shared, he's a coach for the district, and then shared that with the middle school because we had a lot of middle school kids that left the classroom, in third or fourth grade and had never, middle school, they come into middle school and it's their first time experiencing a true normal school year since they were 8 or 9. So absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't think it stops at preschool. I think this has to be done for all grade levels and it has to be done repeatedly. We get in the habit a lot of having these great ideas when we come out, and I call it smell the crayons because that was my favorite thing to do, getting my classroom ready was smelling the fresh crayons before they're broken and thrown around the classroom. And we come in and we're so pumped and we share our classroom expectations. We teach kiddos what we should do and then we stop. They have to know we have to teach year round. We have to teach and reteach. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate that. You're right. It doesn't stop at preschool. It goes across all levels. I think that gets us close to time for a break. But before we do that, did anyone else want to share anything about their thoughts with the expectations?
There were some good things in the chat. Stephanie, they said things
Okay.
like talking about explicit. I'm trying to go up here. There were several great things. So if I miss something and you really want me to say it out loud, then please just raise your hand. Um, but this is a great tool for P2 classrooms. Explicit instruction is critical. It should happen across all areas. These are very reasonable expectations, reasonable for this age. A good tool. Teach explicit instruction in this area is critical, and excellent expectations, and the magic happens with the explicit instruction alongside with expectations. Somebody agreed with Harper. And things you don't think about when our water fountains reopen. None of our pre-K through 2 elementary students knew how to use one. And then
Yeah,
somebody
isn't that
said my
crazy? Thinking
daughter is a
about that?
second.
sorry. Yeah, and so somebody said, "Yeah, my daughter's a second grader, and she started kindergarten virtually, and I had to teach her." And then Alan said, "We had a lot of conversation upon reopening about the lack of experience our primary students had inside the building."
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. Those are great. And I'll go back and read these too, Shasta, when I'm no longer screen sharing. But I do think that puts us at 10:59. So it's time for a
Mhm.
break. And thank you guys for participating.
Absolutely. So friends, we'll go ahead and take a break until 11:05. So if everybody will make sure that they're back in their spots, ready to pick back up at 11:05, that would be great. Just remember to turn your screens and mics off while you're away, and then we'll see you back in a minute.
Hey guys, this is Becca. If Shasta, can you and Stephanie and Bill hear me? Are you guys back?
Ma'am.
Yes,
I can hear you,
ma'am.
yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So everyone is assigned to a breakout room, and I made you guys co-organizers so you guys could travel throughout the rooms, as can I. And Mike has been assigned to room 1.
Okay, great.
But the 4 of us will be able to visit all of them.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know how
that
to do
sounds good.
that.
I don't either, but but we'll learn. Is it
I
pretty
think you,
straightforward, Becca?
I think so. If you'll just click on, once I open the rooms, you'll be able to click on the rooms icon and then um, double click on the extension number, like the little dot, dot, dot. No, it's not a number, but the little extension icon, and then try to visit that room. And if you can't, it is no big deal.
Understood. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
I will give it my best. I've often joked that I need to take a technology class, but I really don't want to, but I need to.
I know I'm always like, well, I have Becca. I don't have to know these things. I have Becca.
Well, so that's what I did so often. I was so dependent on a couple of my coworkers that used to always present for me. One of them's on this call, and she knows I'm insufficient. Um, I just didn't learn. I mean, I had typewriters in school, so
Oh, I took a typing class in school. That's how old I am. I took a typing class, typewriter class.
yes, we did too. And I didn't. I got in trouble for pecking at the keys instead of putting my hands where they had to be.
All right, friends,
Okay.
it is 11:05, so hopefully everyone is back or in the process of coming back. We hope everybody got a chance to stretch, get a drink, do whatever you needed to do. Stephanie, you're welcome to pick it back up. And just kind of as a reminder, we have scheduled to start breakout sessions around 11:50.
Perfect. We have just a couple, more pieces to go through, so we might hit those early, Shasta, but we'll see how we go. So we just finished talking about universal. So what we offer through this work to everybody, everybody gets it. Um, Everyone's included. So then we move on to targeted. So that second tier of this work, this framework. Under targeted, we look at self-regulation, expressing and understanding emotions, problem solving, developing social relationships as social emotional learning for all. So we still are going to be doing this for all children, but then take a look at this. Explicit instruction for some. Increased opportunities for those some children for instruction, practice, and feedback. Again, family partnerships for these kiddos. Everybody gets everything, but then as we start to move through the tiers with our kiddos, that family piece has to be there. And then here is, where the data comes in. We do have to have some monitoring and some data decision making. Everything we have, we want to make good choices, good decisions for our students, and we can't do that without some data. So again, we're right here. We are in that secondary prevention, that tier 2, because we start with our worked workforce. That's you guys. Again, we give thanks to everybody. That's those relationships and setting up that environment. And then we give our targeted social and emotional supports. We look at individualized intensive interventions to address these challenging behaviors as we get into that tier 3. This is where, I can't say enough. This can't be the first time that our mom, dad, family caregiver is hearing that their precious cargo is having a tough time at school. This can't be the first time, folks. We have to make sure that we're including those families along the way. But in this tier 3 is that comprehensive intervention across all settings, including home and community. So, what does that mean, and why do we say and community? Well, because we want to try to the best of our ability for these kiddos to still get to be in their childcare placement if that's after or before preschool. And we want mom, dad, caregiver to be supporting what the kiddo really needs at home. And so, we have had some of our coaches and some of our teachers make little take home schedules. So our kiddos have some of those supports once they're at home too, those visual schedules that are so important. This is where we've got some assessment based pieces. It is a collaborative team and skill building. Again, going into tier 3, everybody's on board. This isn't news to caregivers, and our teachers have done everything they can do. And now it's time to see what this individual kiddo needs. So, this is our individualized piece of the work. So, you can see how the tiers kind of build up. We start with, again, the effective workforce. You might get tired of me saying it, but that's a key component to this work is having a support system. Then everybody gets everything. Then we have some kids that need a little bit more while we still give everybody everything. And then we have our kiddos. It's IEP time, it's behavior intervention, plan time. We still need more. So this is where we're at. And then successful pyramid model teachers, they feel connected, they feel confident and competent in their work, and they have the skills they need in the classroom to really set the children up for success going into kindergarten and then first, second, third grade, and so on. I do have just a couple references here. Again, Shasta, do they have access to the PowerPoint? Is that correct?
They will. So after this presentation, they'll have access to it. But Becky and I, one of us can drop some things in the chat if they need
Okay.
this right now. But they will have access to it. I think it'll get us maybe a few minutes to get it loaded up after our presentation.
It's
Okay.
actually, I went ahead and added it. So
See,
it's,
Becca, look at her.
they
Thank
have
you.
access to it now. Yes.
Because one of the websites that is totally free, so that's what we get asked a lot, how much does this cost, right? This all sounds really great for our district, but how much is it going to cost us? It's free. There are things that you can pay for, but the majority of the work is free. And that's at challengingbehavior.org. And we're going to go there in just a minute, just so you can see that website as you guys are learning about some early childhood pieces. It will be a great website for you guys to save, to bookmark, to share with your district if you haven't already. It's really, really neat and has a lot of free resources on there for your teachers. Because that is it. That's my PowerPoint, but that doesn't mean we're all done. So don't get too excited yet. I know I appreciate everybody for hanging with us on Saturday. I do have my contact information on here if you want, if you have further questions or maybe you're interested. While my name is listed on here, your RTCs provide the actual support for this work. So if you don't know who your RTC is, please email me and ask, and I'll make sure that we get that to you because they are our experts. So like I said, just take one moment. I do want to pull up that website to show you guys, but does anyone have any questions or comments right now before we go to this website and then we go to our breakout rooms? Anything anybody wants to share? And you don't have to. I'm just buying some time because I'm not good with technology. Y'all have already figured that out. I'm trying to figure out how to close off my own PowerPoint and go to the browser. Okay, I think I've got it.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and I want to pull up our discussion group questions really quickly so everybody can kind of just take a screenshot or a picture. I know that when we get into the rooms, we're like, wait, what were we supposed to talk about? So I'll go ahead and pull this up for you guys really quickly, and you guys can look at that. And these are just some kind of general discussion questions. By no means do you have to stick to these questions. If you have a unique thought or a unique question that you'd like to kind of share amongst your group, that is totally fine. These are just some sort of stems to kind of get us started. So I'll give you just another second to take a picture of those. Alrighty, and so I think Becca, if you want to go ahead and send us to our breakout rooms, and just as a little timekeeping note, somebody wants to make sure that you're on time and keeping track of the discussion. We will plan on being back. It says 11:50, but we're done quite early today. So why don't we set why don't we say for 10 minutes? We'll have discussion for about 10 minutes, and then after that, we'll come back to our rooms and maybe as a Thanksgiving surprise, we might get a little early today. So 10 minutes in discussion group, and then we'll come back.
Sounds good. I'm going to open the rooms now.
Thanks.
Wow, that worked.
It did. Wonderful.
Well done.
So I think if you guys click on rooms, mine still says opening.
I don't
Step.
see rooms.
Same.
If up at the very top, do you
Okay.
see breakout rooms at the very top? Let me share my
No.
screen.
Mm-mm.
You
No,
don't?
No.
I know what button you're talking about, Becca, but we don't have it right now.
That's
Yeah.
bizarre. So this is what it looks
No.
like.
Yeah, no, I don't have.
Can you click on
Oh,
more
I
and
have
see?
a pop out. Now I see a pop out button. Is
Okay.
that the button I need or?
No.
Okay.
Well, ideally, what you should be able to do is come over here. Once you have the rooms, you might have to click on more to see the rooms.
Because I don't even see it on more. Am I just looking over it?
No, I don't see it either, Shasta. And I'm not great, but I've been in some rooms before, just not floated. It's not an option on here. I mean,
What
that's
I
okay.
see, the only difference is, as I mentioned, is that I have a request control button. To the left of the people button, I have pop out and request control.
I might need to, since we've been using the same link for so long, I might need to update the link so that we have the full features.
Oh,
Because
Becca, Amy is in the room with us. She's raised her hand. She probably.
Amy.
Hey, I'm so sorry, you all. I
No worries.
accidentally X'd out of my room. I was in room 5.
Okay, let me put you back in room 5.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
No worries,
No
no worries.
problem.
What I'll do, friends, is I'll update the link for our next one because we might not have access to all of the new Microsoft features with Teams since we've been using the same link over and over.
That's a good thought. And I see
Yeah,
Kate. So Kelly, I think Katie. Hang on. My screen's being wonky too. Kelly Meadows. Can you
it
hear
says
us?
she's on hold. It could be either because she's either in the room or maybe she had to take another Teams call, which I doubt that's what it is. So I bet it's because she's in a different room. But in the future, if you can click on rooms, what you can do is open up, it'll look like this, right? So you'll click on rooms. And then it'll give you a drop down. You can see everyone who's in the room, but you can also click on the extension and then join the room. Join room. And I'm going to do that now since I can. And I'll let you guys hang out here. Just a reminder, we're still recording.
Understood. We have 6 rooms, right?
We have 5 that are in use.
We have 5 rooms in use, and they know their rooms, right? Sounds like
Well, they don't need to know their rooms.
No, right. I'm just thinking of when we bring
Oh,
everyone
their
back and for comments for those who want to share.
room.
We'll try that. I'll try that, and if not, just ask for volunteers.
Yeah, just has to
It's
be
all
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
all good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna visit some rooms.
Okay. That's interesting. So it shows her as on hold too when she went to a room.
Yeah, the rooms button just isn't on the top of my screen
Mm-mm.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
No.
And it has been before.
Mm-hmm.
Now the pop out button is gone. I don't have that option. So, and I did not have the room button at all. I didn't see that at all. So
Interesting.
it's going
So
really
this is
well.
yes, this is a really good presentation.
This
It's
is
not
really good.
overwhelming. Like it's not too sometimes, it's because, you have a hour and a half and it gets to be so much and too much, but this is really um manageable. This is a really good amount of information and you've done a really good job. So from as one facilitator to the other, you've done a really good job with your interaction and allowing time for some questions and feedback, and you have a really good just kind of natural disposition at doing this. So just wanted to say good job.
You're too kind. I'm just passionate about the work, so sometimes I get a little wordy.
I agree with everything Shasta
Mhm.
says. I mean, your demeanor is awesome. The content is responsive to the needs of scholars right now. Right? I think it's timely. It's just going really well.
Hey, Amy.
Yes.
Uh,
The struggle is real today, you all. I can
Look,
hear,
it's okay.
when I get in there, I can hear people talking, but all I see is a white screen, and they can't hear me. So I don't know
Amy,
what I've done wrong.
what my suggestion is that we just have we can turn this main room into a breakout room. And you can have a chat with Miss Stephanie Ernst herself. So
you win.
But I'm really good at it, so nobody should be surprised if you know me. I am trouble. So okay, so let me get my picture. I'm surprised at the number of suspensions and expulsions for kiddos, and I did not realize if you talk to a parent and we're talking about the child's behavior and they offer to come and get them, that equaled like an expulsion or suspension. I didn't know that. So that was surprising information to me. And I am a former preschool teacher, so 16 years in the preschool classroom. And so I expelled kids. Oops.
Yeah, we're guilty, aren't we?
Yeah.
I did too.
And
And that's part of why I share.
And when I talked to the parents, I was just talking about behaviors, no intent for them to even come and pick up their child. Because lots of times when they'd say those things, I was like, this is why your kiddo's here. Let's work through this. I just want to communicate with you things that were going on, and see how they address those kind of things at home if those behaviors happen there also. And thankfully, there was very few times that parents were ever surprised at what I had to say about their child's behavior. It wasn't like something that they were saving for school. So that's good.
Yeah, but we're all guilty, Amy, and that's okay. And that's part of, when I share this work, I share, it was an accident. I don't think teachers out there are trying to, do this, but it's just a lack of awareness, right? And it's that extra piece that I've probably preached on a little too much. And Bill's been around the block a lots of times or twos, with preschool, but it is a disconnect. I still work in districts today where preschool is here, and when they go to kindergarten, it's a magic wand and they become district students then.
Right.
They're not viewed as district students, when they're 3 and 4. And I'm like, they're yours as soon as they come. And not only that, but that's their first taste of this district, of this support system. And if we fail, then it's going to continue to look a little yucky. So yeah,
like I was like the stepchild, pushed into the hallway in the dark corner and ignored, even as a teacher. So 16 years, no lunch break, nobody cared.
Right.
Those kind of things.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
why I shared a little bit about why I was here. I loved preschool. I think you
love
have
it.
to love it to do it. But when I, had the kid that needs tier 3 that we've talked about today, and all partners needed to be together, I didn't have that. My administration said, "Well, we have the same degree. You just take care of it yourself." Well, that's great and all, but I need your support. And so
Right.
I was like, okay, I want to make a change. And so I'm trying, and I've got a huge support system behind me. I've had, so many success stories from these RTCs. It's just really amazing to see the work that they're doing.
Yeah, the RTCs helped a lot when we started implementing ECHRs and, getting things for our classroom that we really needed, but kind of liked maybe funding for, maybe. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
We weren't getting some of the things that we needed, but it made a big difference in the classroom and how it functions. So I will always appreciate those ECHR money. And, it was hard for me to look at ECHRs as a good thing because it required me to change some things I'd been doing for a while, but it was so wonderful. It was so great for my classroom and my kids. And so I love me some ECHRs.
Yeah. So, Amy, you said you were a preschool teacher. So, what do you do now?
I switched to special education because I wanted to be director of special education. And they say you have to be special ed, you have to be special ed. So I was like, okay, fine. If you're going to make me, I'll do it. And so here I am rocking it, And it's different.
Awesome.
I work with second graders now. And, they're not so much different than preschoolers, honestly.
They're not.
Right now, after all the COVID and things, there's not a lot.
I have a middle schooler, he's an 8th grader, and he's not that much different than a preschooler sometimes. So
I was just going to say I have a senior in high school and I see lots of similarities as well.
I will agree too. I've got a 22-year-old in college, and so same. He's not
Well,
gotten
and
better.
people joke, but when you're even like say you're in a meeting like this, I always play a little game with social skills. I'm like, who had preschool and who didn't? Not necessarily this meeting, probably because this is a specific group of people. But like if I'm out in public or whatever, maybe at a dinner and someone does some sort of social faux pas or whatever, I'm like, that person probably didn't go to preschool.
Yes. Let's see.
I cannot remember what time
yeah, I think we said 10 minutes, and that would have been about 11:23. So if you want to give them like a 1-minute warning, and that way they can finish
Oh,
up.
looks like Ashley's got a slight emergency. A sick dog just threw up on her carpet.
Oh no. Not seeing that.
Yeah,
be back.
and I don't know. I'm new here, Shasta, Bill, Becca. So the only other thing I want to do is just show them the NCP and my website before we log off today. So you guys just tell me when. I'm just
Yeah. So when we come back, why don't we just give Bill, give everybody an opportunity to kind of share out and highlight anything from the discussion, and then
Perfect.
Steph, if you want to jump into sharing that, and then we'll get everybody closed up after that.
And Bill, I was thinking, since they probably do not know what specific number room they were in, we could try something new this time. And we could just say if anyone is eager to share their thoughts,
We could do that. Yeah, that sounds
raise
good.
their hand. And it doesn't have to be room specific. We could just invite anyone that's eager to share their thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. I will
And Amy,
close.
thanks for sharing with us. Glad you were able to.
Yeah. I'm glad you saw the white light and nothing else. 'Cause that landed you back with us.
And you came back, right?
Yes. I don't know. I've never had problems before going into the breakout room, so I'm not sure what my deal is today. So I do apologize, but I appreciate the conversation I had with you all. So thank you
Well,
so much.
Teams has a mind of its own sometimes too. Like it
does.
really does. So most of the time it's good and it's great and we're used to it, and it's such a good tool. But every now and then it's just like, I'm just gonna be really, emotional today for whatever reason. So
And I'm having trouble closing the room. What time did we open them?
11:13.
13.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're overtime, but I'm sure they don't mind.
Yeah, it looks like
Okay.
I'm seeing lots of discussion happening in their little chat rooms. I can see the chat rooms are popping up for me.
I'm closing the rooms now, so people should begin to filter back in. And I visited all of them, and they were all having really good conversations, good engagement. So I love it when everybody pops back in because their cameras are all open because they were in small groups. It's nice to see everyone's faces. We're still in the process of closing them. Yes, Shasta.
Together mode is so fun. So if you guys don't know, when you're in Teams, it's like the funnest little thing. You can click this more button and you can go over here to together mode and you can like choose like if you want to be like under the sea or inside of bubbles or in a very formal lecture classroom like this. Either way, lots of fun things just
Hang
so
on,
you guys
Shasta.
know.
Don't. I took a little snippet.
Okay.
I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share this snippet in our ESS SharePoint site. Sorry, in our Kentucky Lead SharePoint site. I'll put it up there.
All righty, Bill, go ahead and give us an opportunity to share out here.
Well, this is fantastic. This is really exciting. And so welcome back, everyone. And now's our chance to share what you've discussed, what you've learned, what surprised you, what you would like to learn more about. And so rather than just going by room, I think we'll just ask for anyone who wants to share, just speak up. What did you talk about in your room and what excites you and maybe what you would like to learn more about? We'll just ask for volunteers.
Go ahead, Kane.
So one of the things we discussed, and I'm in Hardin County, and we've seen a huge uptick in eligibilities of DD Social since the pandemic, and especially in our early elementary kindergarten, where the kids never really had a true preschool experience. And with that, we are revisiting our PBIS. It had turned into everyone just has a mnemonic for whatever the behavioral expectation is, and you give out bucks or loot or whatever you want to call it, dollars, and you get a reward. But we never were really teaching those expectations to our students. So we are kind of circling back to what are those fundamentals of PBIS and how can we address the school-wide but also classroom expectations so we can avoid having more instances of negative behaviors and hopefully reduce our social in the outcomes.
Thank you for sharing. Sounds like you had a good discussion around the fundamentals of PBIS, not only for reducing challenging behaviors, but for increasing positive behaviors as well at the classroom level and at the school level too. Okay, others? I think there were at least 5 breakout rooms. Who else would like to share?
Our group had a good, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on my AirPods. It's weird for me. We had a good discussion just about like the mindset of educators and like the behaviors have changed tremendously. But we even talked about parents, one of the group members did, just that mindset of like, kiddos or a student does something and you want to see a consequence, like you want to see a negative, a disciplinary action. I mean, I'm guilty of it for sure, especially with the older kiddos. But we just talked about the importance of trying to figure out, what's going on with them. Like the example of the change of medication. Our dose, we're lucky. Carmen was a speech therapist for forever, so she works under the notion of all behavior is a form of communication. And so, I just think if you don't have that support from an admin and district level of trying to figure out the why behind the behavior, then that's why those numbers are so skewed and we see so many, disciplinary actions for kids who it may could have been avoided. We also talked about the daunting nature of just like doing an ABC or trying to figure out a behavior plan. That seems really daunting to some teachers, so they need support in that too.
Thank you for sharing. So the importance of communication with families as well as, behavior planning, and it's a good discussion. Now's your yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was in Katie's group too, part of group 5, and we all talked about how, staggering that data was to us. Like, it was just so shocking to see the expulsion and the suspension rates, and then, but we also talked about how that was representative of several different types of environments, Head Start, preschool, and daycare. And then we talked about how, um, if you broke it down even a little bit more, the rates would probably look a little bit different between, say, a daycare and a preschool setting, because preschool is associated with public school, so they might have access to more supports than, say, a daycare does. And how daycares are usually filled with people who just maybe love working with children, maybe don't have a background in education at all. But in the preschool environment, sometimes you see that a lot of the workers that are in the preschool environment are going to school to be preschool teachers or some sort of teacher. And so maybe the preschool environment is a little bit more flexible in that aspect of looking at behaviors and how to address those behaviors.
Thank you for sharing. And the data is instructive, isn't it? While on one level it's shocking, at the same time it's descriptive, right? It can help us identify what's actually happening in our classrooms, as well as across settings, which I think is what you're describing. What's happening in childcare, what's happening in Head Start, and may provide opportunities for opening up additional conversations about what can be done to address bias in the classroom and ensure all students receive the supports they need. Good conversations. Who else would like to share?
I'll just share really quickly one thing that Stephanie highlighted, was that partnering with families piece and trying to balance that. Like, how do you make sure that that families understand and have a clear picture of some of the behaviors of their children, but also not only saying negative things about their children, right? And for me, that's kind of, it's both personal and professional for me. My kiddo, my son is adopted, had a lot of trauma at an early age, and I think about how important it was. His kindergarten teacher was trauma informed, and she understood and knew a lot about trauma informed schools and trauma informed care. The difference that that made in how she communicated with us, and the tools and things that she would provide to us to say, yeah, so here, here's the behavior, right? But let me give you this tool to go with that. Let me give you this resource to kind of help you understand that, and let's meet and let's talk about that. And that was so critical and so important, because even though I had I thought I knew everything, right? I was like, I'm special education, I can totally handle all this, right? And then, yeah, humility is always bitter. But how important that was, and just what a great job she did of balancing. Here's the reality, here's the fact of what's happening, but also love, support, and not just supporting my kiddo, but supporting us as a family, and providing us with information and tools and resources to help us, work together, was just like, it was just so important. And just, Stephanie, you talked about that. And then I got to think, well, we don't want to say too many negative things. And so that was just one thought or connection I have, was just making sure that as you work with families, that you be, open and honest about things, but also balance that with that. Here are some resources, like, here are some things, we suspect, if we think maybe there might be some social areas, we're thinking about autism or whatever, what resource, we just found out this kiddo has autism, or we just found out this kiddo has, is DD or whatever. What do families need to be able to support that kiddo and support that kiddo at school academically, socially, and emotionally, and then providing that as well. So.
Thank you, Shasta. Let's see. Let me just ask one more time if there's anything anyone else would like to share from the breakout discussions. Well, very good. I know Becca was right. Becca, you were bouncing between the rooms, right? And heard
Yes.
lots of wonderful discussions happening around today's content. What we would do is encourage you to continue those conversations on the discussion board, right? Keep those ideas going and continue to share. And with that, Shasta, I think we're probably ready for the evaluation. I can drop a.
Well, Bill,
Oh, go.
sorry
Yes.
to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I wanted to take this opportunity because we have a little bit of extra time. I wanted to share
Yes.
my screen for a second
Yes.
and just show the scholars where the discussion board is. So it's over here with reflect and respond. Here's the discussion board. You can start a new conversation. This one is most recent on top. You can click and see the ones that you've started. Also, just as a reminder that you can always find the information for the next Kentucky Leads seminar. The schedule will be here. There'll be a link to join. As you can see, I put the agenda and the fact sheet for this meeting. This was here a couple days ago. So if I have it in advance, I'll share it in advance. You can always find the link that Bill was discussing, the Saturday seminar survey link. It's always here. The link doesn't change. So you can come here and find that link. I also build resources from each Saturday within this main page. There'll be a point where I'll probably stop doing that. But when I do that, when I do stop posting it here, you can always click on general resources and find, again, like today, there's the fact sheet. Here's Stephanie's PDF of her PowerPoint presentation. Lots of good resources here. The Saturday sessions are always archived. If you ever miss a session, our new expectation is that you will watch the seminar and provide some follow-up to the team. So you'll be able to find the Saturday sessions here. And does anyone have any questions about accessing SharePoint while we're on this call? Okay, Bill, I'll hand it back over to you then. Thank you for that time.
Yeah, thanks, Becca. And what I'm going to do is see if Stephanie, if you have any final words to share with scholars today, any additional resources, or just, closing thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I just dropped the two links into the chat that I wanted to just show you guys before you hop off. That'll be good resources for you guys, for yourself, and to take back. I was trying to request control again. Okay, here we go. Am I on here? Perfect. So this is that challengingbehavior.org website I talked a lot about. This is all things pyramid. It is full of all kinds of free stuff. But if you want this information broken down a little bit different, it gives you the basics, why, who created it, and then it walks you through the tiers. And so you can go here and you can look at these pop outs here to the side, and you can see some more information on breaking down those tiers of the pyramid here for PBIS for preschool. And Also, a resource library. So again, you do not have to be engaged in this work with the RTC to access this resource library. We hope that you are, but if you're not, this is still free. So if you guys have, a preschool friend or a classroom and you're just looking for something, you can come here to this website, to the resource library, and you can type in anything you're looking for. It is just like Christmas. So I just typed in schedules, and then available in so many languages. We have Arabic, Spanish, French. There's lots of options there, but it'll give you all kinds of supports. So here's the one: visual supports for routine schedules and transitions, and then you can click view again, totally free. You can view the resource again to download that to your computer. And there's you a little bit about what we do. We do a lot of first and then, we do a lot of visual schedules. Again, all this is free. So that's there for you. The other piece that I put in the chat was the link to the online courses. Now, if you're interested, please reach out to your RTC because they have the ability to get preschool folks access to these e-modules, but if you're not, you can come here and there are things for everyone. This does start at the infant toddler level and goes all the way through preschool, but we have our basic, which is what you learned about today, and those were those basic 3 modules: the building relationships and environments, that social emotional teaching, and then the tier 3 individualized intervention. But also there's more than that. We have prevent, teach, reinforce. We have a coaching. We have a trauma-informed care in the pyramid model, which is really awesome. It's a really neat e-module to help make some connections. Taking care of yourself, and then that culturally responsive practices to reduce implicit bias, disproportionality, and suspension expulsion. Again, first, reach out to your RTC. Second, if this is just for you and not for a preschool person, these are fairly cheap considering you get access to these for a year once you pay for it. Except for a couple of them you'll see here, you get 90-day access. So these are really awesome, a great place to start. Those you pay for, but all the resources you do not. So that's really all that I had to share, was just those things with you. I'm happy to got to come today and share a little bit of preschool with folks. I hope you took away something. I know it's not, preschool is not for everyone, but I hope you took away something that you can share with a friend or with your district.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Stephanie. And I'm just gonna grab the screen back here really quickly. Just a few reminders kind of before we go. I did drop a link to the evaluation and the wrap up in the chat a little bit earlier, so you guys have access to that. And again, that is not only is it important for us for data and an important part of our grant, but we really do utilize that. So the information that you provide to us, we take that to heart and we look at it and we use it to help inform decisions for future meetings. Our next session is December 17th. So usually I think it's the 4th Saturday, but the 17th is not a 4th Saturday. But that's because of the holiday break and things. So just go ahead and, I don't know, Becca, if you've sent that out yet or not, but if not, go ahead and just mark it down, a reminder that our December session is on the 17th. And then with that, does anybody have any final questions or anything before we go? Any final questions? Okay, if not, you guys get out like 12 minutes early. Stephanie, you're going to be everybody's favorite because you got us out early. Like, you're going to get the MVP award. Everybody loves that, right? So, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. Team, thank you all so much for sharing your thought space with us today and your time with us today. We hope that you enjoyed it, and feel free to reach out to anyone on the leadership team if you have any questions. And if not, we will see you. Quick show. Who's going to CEC? Anybody on this screen going to CEC? Show of hands. Ooh, Kentucky Leads is going to have a table there. So you guys make sure you stop by. If you have some friends who would make a great future director, push them gently, not aggressively, but push them gently to that booth so that we can provide them with some information for Kentucky Leads. Okay. Bye everybody. Have a great rest of your Saturday.